welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our SwiftUI tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can use buttons in SwiftUI. Now, what is a button? Well, a button is exactly what it sounds like, right? It's a clickable UI component that when you click it, it does something. It performs some kind of task, whether it be summoning a dialogue or adding something to core data or making a network request or triggering some kind of animation or something like that. Now, in this particular video, I'm going to show you how you can modify state values with a button as well as animate those changes using a spring animation. There are other animations you could use, but we're going to use a spring in this particular video because it's a little bit more interesting. Alright, so why am I showing you animations in this? Well, I want to kind of get you introduced to animations a little bit as we move along, and triggering an animation with a button is the perfect opportunity for you to kind of have that general idea of how a button actually works and the kind of effects that it can have. Alright, so I'm slowly kind of introducing you to more and more topics as we go along. Alright, so let's go ahead and build our user interface. So in Xcode, what we're going to do is we are going to have a circle. This circle is going to be, well, maybe not so much a circle. We'll have an image. Okay, an image that is an SF symbol. That'll be 100 by 100 initially. Maybe even bigger. If you want to make it bigger, go for it. And then we will animate scaling the image. And then we'll also animate rotating the image. We're not going to do them at the same time. We're going to do them separately so you can kind of see exactly how this works. And besides, I don't want you to do them at the same time because it's going to be a bit much, right? So let's go ahead and inside of our body, we'll say image, system name. We'll use the apple icon this time. In fact, just to double check, you can open up SF symbols, which is what we're going to do. So I'm in the beta for SF symbols because the non-beta version doesn't run yet. Well, it doesn't run at all in the beta. Alright. So we want the toolbar, search, Apple. Okay, so we have Apple Terminal, Apple Meditate. We want Apple logo. Now, of course, there are usage restrictions on this, but we're not going to put this in a production app. We're not going to use this SF symbol in production, so we're fine. I'm just showing you as an example. So I'm going to copy the name. And boom. Okay. All right. And so now that we have our SF symbol, we need to resize it. So resizable dot frame is going to be a width of 150, height of 150. All right. We want to make sure that we scaled to fit. All right. All right. So now, if we run our code, we'll have a 150 by 150 Apple logo in the center of our window. That's precisely what we want. And so before we continue, I want to set the frame of our window so we can have a larger canvas to work with. And so what we'll do, there we go. Well, I'll go into my main app file. And right under our content view, we'll give it a frame of, let's say, 1920 by a height of 1080. All right, we'll go ahead and save that. And when we build and run our code now, we have a much bigger window to work with. All right. Now, here, we can actually create our button. Above our image, we'll create a button. Now, how do we create a button? Well, there are many ways to create a button, but the most simple, most basic way is to use the initializer that takes in a string and an action. Now, this action is a closure, and this closure is what will be executed when the button is tapped or clicked or whatever the case might be, depending on your platform. So let's go ahead and create our button. So capital B button. And we'll say scale me. All right. Now, what do we want to happen when this button is clicked or it's tapped? Well, we want to increase the value state value that we have up above in our content view, because I do have a state variable here. It's just called value. It's of type double, and it's at an initial value of 1. Pretty simple. Well, we want to increase this. We want this to go up by 0.5 every time. You can play around with this number if you would like to kind of make it scale up or rotate, whatever you want to do with it, more or less. I urge you to play around with it. We're going to just say value plus equals 0.5. All right. And now what we can do is underneath our frame, we can say dot scale effect and we'll say value, just like that. All right, if we save this and we run it, and now we have our button up there at the top that just says scale me. We can click this, and it does scale up the image every time you click the button, which is precisely what we wanted to happen. However, it doesn't smoothly animate the change. It makes it abruptly, right? And that can be that can be great. It can be useful in some, in many scenarios, and most scenarios on macOS that's fine. But on iOS or watchOS, we're used to animations, and in certain scenarios in macOS, we're used to animations. So how can we animate these changes? Well, we can animate these changes by using the animation or animate modifier. All right. So under scale effect, we'll say dot animation and so here we're being we don't need a body. All right. But we will need a value. So value, colon, and we'll give it value here so it knows what to animate. But the first argument is of type animation. And here we need to give it a spring animation. So just say dot spring and in here we'll just say duration. Okay, let's all right. So what we'll do here is dot animation and we'll say dot spring, not sprint. Here we'll say, let's see, we'll just do the first one. Here we'll give it a duration. And this will be in seconds. So let's just say we want this to last about 1 second. All right. We need to give this a value, so we'll say value like that. And that's it. This is the most basic way, or at least one of the more basic ways, of defining a spring animation. Now, this is only available in macOS 14 and above, and iPad OS and iOS 17 and above. If you want an iOS 16 compatible version of this, Paul Hudson on Hacking with Swift has a fantastic article on the topic. So you can see it here. This is his article on the topic. It shows you how you can do the iOS 17 version, but also how you can do an iOS 16 compatible version if you have to support that version. All right. So if we go ahead and build now, build and run, we can see the Apple logo there. We have our button. If we click it, now the change is animated. So it looks like a spring. Let's make the change a little bit more stark. All right. So we'll scale it up by 2. We'll add 2 to it each time. So save that. We'll run it. And there it goes. So what did the spring animation here do? Well, what it did is it acts like a normal spring. It goes and it basically scales up our image in this case to where it needed to be, went a little bit over, bounced back, bounced a little bit over again, and stuff like that until the animation was over. Pretty cool stuff there. Now, what if we want to rotate the image instead? Well, we can do that. So instead of value plus equals 2 here, we'll have this rotate about, let's say 30 degrees each time we press the button. And then instead of 1, we started off at 0. And then at this point, all we need to do is change one modifier. Instead of scale effects, we can say dot rotation effect. And we need to pass it an angle, so dot degrees. And we'll say value, like that. Save it, run it. All right, so here we are. You can see our icon there. Let's click our button. And you can see that the Apple logo rotated, but it also had a little bit of a spring. It rotated in a springy, smooth spring way. All right, so let's go ahead and increase the size of our image just a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. So let's say 450. Save that, run it. Now the Apple logo is nice and big. Go ahead and click the button again. And there goes the rotation. There it goes again. Now let's actually kind of increase the amount that it rotates. So maybe we want it to rotate Maybe we want to rotate it, let's say 90 degrees. So save that, run it. All right. And now it goes and rotates that 90 degrees, does it again, and all of that. So that pretty much does it for this video on buttons and animations for like a basic spring animation. Thank you all so very much for watching. I will see you in the next one.